Welcome, dear listener, and thank you for choosing to spend this quiet time with us, journeying into the orchard where dewdrops echo songs. We hope this gentle story brings you comfort and peace. If you find solace in this narrative and wish to explore more calming content, we warmly invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Before we step through the gates of the whispering orchard, we will begin with a short, soothing, breathing guidance to help ease you into relaxation. Should you prefer to drift directly into the story, please feel free to use the chapter timestamps provided in the description below to navigate. Please find a position that feels deeply comfortable for you right now. Allow your body to feel fully supported, perhaps noticing the gentle pressure where you rest against your bed or chair. Let your limbs feel heavy and relaxed. Adjust your blankets, letting them settle around you like a soft embrace. This is your time, a quiet space carved out just for you to let the edges of the day soften and blur. Imagine the gentle quiet of the whispering orchard beginning to envelop you, the air smelling faintly of damp earth and distant blossoms. Let us take a slow, easy breath together now. Inhale gently through your nose, feeling the cool air entering, filling your lungs without effort, perhaps carrying the imagined scent of chamomile or fresh dew. And now, exhale slowly and softly through your mouth, like a gentle sigh releasing any lingering tension. Feel your shoulders soften and drop with the out-breath. With each inhale, imagine drawing in calm and quiet. With each exhale, picture any tightness or worries drifting away like dandelion seeds on a soft breeze. Feel the gentle weight of your body settling, becoming heavier, more relaxed, sinking deeper into comfort. If thoughts from the day arise, simply acknowledge them without judgment, like noticing clouds drifting lazily across a calm sky. Gently guide your attention back to the rhythm of your breath or the sound of my voice. There is nothing else you need to do but rest and allow yourself to be carried by the gentle current of the story. Feel a sense of warmth beginning to spread through your limbs, a comfortable heaviness that invites rest. Let the peaceful atmosphere of the orchard begin to soothe your mind. Allow the gentle magic of the whispering orchard to begin its work. Feel the stillness settling around you, a comforting quiet that promises peace. Soon, we will walk the mossy paths alongside Anya, listening for the faint echoes held within the morning dew. Let the story guide you effortlessly towards rest, towards dreams, towards deep, restorative sleep. Now, let us begin our journey into the orchard where dewdrops echo songs. Chapter 1. Threshold of the Orchard. The journey had been long, not in distance covered perhaps, but in the quiet weight Anya carried within her. Yet, as the simple wooden cart she'd hired rumbled to a halt beside an unassuming, weathered gate woven from living willow branches, a change began to ripple through the air. The sounds of the track, the rhythmic creak of the wheels, the patient snort of the pony all seemed to soften, absorbed by a profound and welcoming hush that emanated from beyond the gate. It felt less like silence, and more like the world holding its breath in quiet reverence. Anya paid the driver, her movements slow, deliberate, already influenced by the stillness. He nodded, his face holding a kind of peaceful understanding, as if bringing folk here was a gentle duty he performed often. Then, with a soft click of the reins, he was gone, leaving Anya standing alone before the threshold. She pushed the living gate open. It swung inwards with a barely audible sigh of leaves brushing against leaves. Stepping through felt like crossing into another season, or perhaps another state of being altogether. The air instantly grew cooler, carrying the rich, loamy scent of damp earth, mingled with the faintest, sweetest perfume of unseen blossoms. Sunlight, which had been bright on the track, now filtered down in soft, shifting columns, painting dappled patterns on a path of dark, springy moss that seemed to carpet the entire orchard floor. Ancient trees stood on either side, their bark gnarled and wise-looking, their branches reaching towards each other overhead, forming a living, breathing canopy. The quiet here was deeper, softer, punctuated only by the distant fluting call of a wood thrush and the gentle rustle of leaves stirred by a breeze Anya couldn't feel on her skin. Hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence born of the orchard's palpable peace, Anya walked along the mossy path. Her boots made almost no sound, sinking slightly into the plush green cushion with each step. The feeling was grounding, comforting, as if the earth itself were welcoming her home. She trailed her fingers lightly over the rough, cool bark of a passing apple tree, its surface intricate with patterns of lichen and thyme. Looking up through the leaves, she saw the sky not as a vast expanse, but as curated glimpses of soft blue, framed by green. There was a feeling of immense age here, but it wasn't daunting. It felt protective, nurturing, like being held within the gentle wisdom of something ancient and kind. After walking for what felt like both moments and an age, the path opened slightly into a small clearing. Nestled amongst the trees stood a cottage, built of smooth river stones and dark timber, with smoke curling lazily from a single chimney. It looked as though it had grown there, as much a part of the orchard as the trees themselves. Beside the simple wooden door stood an elderly man, his face a network of kind wrinkles, his eyes the color of warm honey, holding a serene light. He wore simple, earth-toned clothes and held a pair of pruning shears loosely in one hand. He smiled as Anya approached, a slow, gentle curving of his lips that reached his eyes. "Welcome," he said, his voice quiet yet clear, like pebbles settling in a calm stream. "I am Rowan. You must be Anya. The orchard felt your arrival." Anya, unsure quite how to respond to that, simply nodded, a shy smile touching her own lips. "Thank you," she managed, her voice sounding hushed in the quiet air. Rowan gestured towards the open cottage door. "Come inside, rest yourself. The journey can take more out of one than the miles suggest." The cottage interior was simple yet immensely cozy. A fire crackled softly in a small stone hearth, casting dancing shadows on the smooth wooden walls. The air smelled faintly of wood smoke, dried herbs, and something warm and sweet. A small table with 2 chairs stood near the window, overlooking a patch of feathery ferns. Rowan moved with an unhurried grace, pouring steaming water from a kettle over dried chamomile flowers in 2 earthenware mugs. He placed one before Anya. "Drink," he said gently. "It helps settle the spirit." Anya wrapped her hands around the warm mug, feeling the heat seep into her palms, then into her arms, loosening a tension she hadn't even realized she was holding in her shoulders. The tea was fragrant, tasting of sunshine and meadows. She sipped it slowly, gazing out the window at the gentle sway of the ferns, the play of light and shadow beneath the trees. As she sat there, wrapped in the cottage's warmth and the orchard's profound quiet, Anya felt the edges of her unnamed sorrow begin to soften. The quiet melancholy she carried didn't vanish, but it seemed to lose its sharp edges, its heavy weight lightening, transforming into something more akin to a gentle mist than a suffocating fog. She felt the smooth, worn wood of the table beneath her fingertips, heard the soft crackle of the fire, tasted the soothing tea. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly present, grounded in the simple sensory details of the moment. The sun began to dip lower, casting longer golden shadows through the trees outside. Rowan sat opposite her, sipping his own tea, seemingly content in the shared silence. There were no demands, no expectations, just the gentle rhythm of the fire, the scent of herbs, the feeling of peace settling like soft dust over everything. Anya took another slow sip of her tea, feeling a warmth spread not just through her body, but through her spirit too. Perhaps, she thought, perhaps here, within the embrace of this whispering orchard, she might truly find what she sought. The weight in her chest felt a little lighter, replaced by a tentative, budding hope, as delicate and green as the moss beneath her feet on the path. Chapter 2. Dewdrops at Dawn. A gentle tapping at her cottage door roused Anya before the first hint of dawn colored the sky. It was Rowan, his silhouette framed in the doorway against the deep pre-dawn blue. "The orchard prepares its morning gift," he whispered, his voice barely disturbing the profound stillness. "Come, if you wish to witness it." Anya, who had slept more deeply than she had in months, wrapped herself in a warm shawl and followed Rowan out into the cool, hushed air. The darkness was soft, velvety, stars still visible through the latticework of branches overhead. The air was cold enough to make her breath mist, carrying the clean, sharp scent of damp earth and chilled leaves. They walked without speaking, Rowan leading the way along a path even softer and quieter in the pre-dawn gloom. Anya focused on the feeling of the cool air on her face, the soft crunch of her footsteps blending with Rowan's, the immense watchful silence of the trees around them. It felt as though the entire orchard was holding its breath, waiting. Rowan stopped beside a low-growing bush with wide, dark leaves, gesturing for Anya to crouch beside him. They waited in stillness, simply observing as the very first pale light began to seep into the eastern sky. And then, the magic began. As if breathed into existence by the dawn itself, tiny beads of moisture started to appear on the surfaces around them. On the broad leaf before Anya, a single perfect droplet formed, catching the nascent light and shimmering like a tiny liquid pearl. Soon, more followed, studding the leaves, clinging to the delicate strands of unseen spiderwebs, gathering in the cups of tiny flowers. The entire orchard seemed to become bejeweled, glistening softly in the growing light. It was breathtakingly beautiful, a silent, glittering transformation happening right before her eyes. The air felt charged with a quiet potential, pure and clean. "Now," Rowan murmured, his voice a low hum that seemed part of the orchard's own soundscape, "is the time for listening. Quiet your mind, Anya. Let the sounds of your own thoughts recede." He demonstrated, cupping his weathered hand gently beside a large dewdrop resting on a curved leaf, his posture one of patient, relaxed attention. "Do not strive, simply be open, listen with a quiet heart." Anya mirrored his action, carefully placing her hand near a glistening drop on a nearby petal. She closed her eyes briefly, taking a slow breath, feeling the coolness of the air, the dampness rising from the earth. At first, all she heard was the gentle symphony of the waking orchard, the first tentative chirps of birds greeting the dawn, the almost inaudible rustle of a leaf settling, the sound of her own quiet breathing. She felt a flicker of frustration, a sense that she was missing something vital. Rowan seemed to sense this. "Patience," he breathed. "The echoes are shy. They reveal themselves not to force, but to stillness." Anya took another breath, consciously relaxing her shoulders, letting go of the desire to hear, and instead focusing on simply being there, present to the moment, to the cool air, the damp scent, the miracle of the dew itself. And then, faintly, like the memory of a sound rather than the sound itself, she heard it. A tiny crystalline chime, impossibly delicate, seeming to emanate from the very air around the dewdrop. It lingered for only a heartbeat, then vanished. Anya held her breath, listening intently. A moment later, another faint sound, a whisper of melody, just 2 or 3 notes, clear as tiny bells, before fading back into the quiet. It wasn't her grandmother's lullaby, not yet, but it was something. A thrill, gentle and wondrous, shivered through her. She looked at Rowan, her eyes wide. He smiled faintly, a knowing, peaceful expression on his face. They stayed there as the sun climbed higher, the light turning from pale silver to soft gold, filtering through the leaves and making the dewdrops sparkle like scattered diamonds. Anya continued to listen, sometimes hearing faint fragments, sometimes only the peaceful sounds of the orchard. She learned that the echoes were elusive, unpredictable, requiring a state of receptive quietude she was only beginning to grasp. It wasn't about straining her ears, but about quieting her inner noise, allowing the subtle frequencies to register. The practice itself was calming, meditative. The focus required drew her completely into the present, the cool air on her skin, the scent of wet leaves filling her senses. As the sun grew warmer, the dewdrops began to shrink, the magic receding with the moisture. Rowan gently touched Anya's arm. "The echoes fade with the dew," he said softly, "but the listening can remain." They walked back towards the cottage, the orchard now alive with birdsong and the hum of early bees. Anya felt a sense of quiet accomplishment, not because she had heard much, but because she had learned how to listen. She felt lighter, clearer, the simple act of patient observation having washed away some layer of inner dust. Back in her cozy cottage, sipping another mug of warm chamomile tea, Anya reflected on the morning. The coolness of the air still seemed to linger on her skin, the image of the glistening dewdrops vivid in her mind. The faint bell-like notes echoed softly in her memory. It was just a beginning, she knew. The path to hearing her grandmother's lullaby might be long, requiring many dawns spent in patient listening. But for the first time, it felt possible. And the journey itself, she realized, was already bringing her a measure of the peace she sought, the stillness of the dawn, the magic of the dew, the gentle guidance of Rowan. It was all weaving a quiet magic within her. Chapter 3. The Orchard's Gentle Memories. The days in the whispering orchard settled into a gentle, unhurried rhythm, dictated by the sun and the dew and the quiet needs of the trees. Each morning before dawn, Anya would join Rowan, venturing out into the cool, pre-dawn stillness to witness the formation of the dew and practice the art of listening. Some mornings, the air seemed alive with faint, fleeting sounds, fragments of melodies like wind chimes heard from afar, whispers too soft to discern the words, even the ghost of gentle laughter once, seeming to bubble up from a dewdrop on a buttercup petal. Other mornings, she heard only the birds, the breeze, and the deep, resonant quiet of the orchard itself. Anya learned not to be discouraged by the quiet mornings. Rowan taught her that the listening wasn't solely about capturing the echoes, but about cultivating the inner stillness required to perceive them. "The orchard shares its secrets softly," he would murmur, pruning a stray branch with careful, deliberate movements. "The quiet heart hears more than eager ears." And so Anya practiced patience, letting go of expectation, finding a simple, profound pleasure in the ritual itself. The cool air, the awakening light, the shared silence with Rowan, the beauty of the dew-kissed leaves and flowers. Beyond the dawn listening, Anya found herself spending hours simply walking the winding, mossy paths. She explored deeper into the orchard, discovering hidden corners where sunlight pooled warmly, groves of ancient pear trees whose bark felt like wrinkled velvet, and patches of wildflowers nodding in unseen breezes. She learned to identify the different bird songs, the cheerful chirp of the robin, the complex melody of the song sparrow, the gentle cooing of wood doves. She watched squirrels chase each other playfully up gnarled trunks and observed the slow, purposeful journey of bees, moving from blossom to blossom, their low hum a constant soothing undercurrent to the orchard's quiet. Sometimes Rowan would join her on these walks, sharing stories of the orchard's past. He spoke not of grand events, but of the small, gentle cycles, the rhythm of seasons, the generations of birds that nested in the same trees, the way certain patches of sunlight seemed to hold a particular warmth year after year. He pointed out trees he had planted as a young man, now tall and strong, and spoke of the previous caretakers, whose presence seemed to linger in the peaceful atmosphere. These stories weren't sad or nostalgic. They were simply threads in the long, continuous tapestry of the orchard's life, reinforcing Anya's growing sense of connection to this peaceful place. She began to notice the subtle magic Rowan had mentioned, the harmonizing trees. It wasn't a sound or a visible aura, but a feeling. When she sat leaning against the sturdy trunk of an old apple tree, feeling the warmth of the sun filtering through the leaves onto her face, a deep sense of calm would invariably settle over her. Worries that seemed pressing just moments before would soften, their edges blurring, replaced by a feeling of simple contentment, of being exactly where she needed to be. The trees seemed to exhale peace, a quiet resonance that seeped into her bones and quieted the lingering ripples of her sorrow. One afternoon, while exploring a part of the orchard she hadn't visited before, Anya found a small stream meandering through the trees. The water chuckled softly over smooth stones, catching the light and sending reflections dancing onto the underside of the leaves overhead. She sat on the bank, trailing her fingers in the cool water, watching the unhurried flow. The gentle sound, the coolness, the play of light, it was deeply soothing. She didn't listen for echoes here, but simply allowed the natural sounds and sensations to wash over her, cleansing her mind, leaving behind a feeling of clean, quiet clarity. As the days turned into weeks, Anya felt a subtle shift within herself. The heavy cloak of melancholy she had arrived with had thinned, becoming more like a light shawl, present but no longer suffocating. She smiled more readily, moved with a quieter grace, her steps lighter on the mossy paths, the constant immersion in the orchard's gentle sensory world, the scent of blossoms, giving way to the smell of ripening fruit, the changing quality of the light, the textures of bark and leaf and moss had grounded her firmly in the present moment. The past, even the cherished memories she sought, felt less like a painful absence and more like a quiet undercurrent waiting patiently to be found. She was learning the orchard's language, not just of dewdrop echoes, but of stillness, patience, and the profound peace found in simply being. Chapter 4. Clarity in the Mist. One morning, Anya woke to find the orchard transformed. A thick, pearly mist had rolled in overnight, blanketing everything in a soft, luminous gray. Sounds were muffled, distant, creating an atmosphere of profound profound stillness and gentle mystery. Even the bird song seemed softer, more intimate, as if sung from just beyond a veil. Rowan met her at the cottage door, his eyes holding a particular quiet gleam. "A misty morning," he murmured. "Sometimes the veil between then and now thins. Listen closely today, Anya. Listen with your quietest heart." They ventured out into the mist-shrouded orchard. The air was cool and damp, carrying the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves more strongly than usual. Visibility was limited. The familiar paths seemed new, trees appearing as soft silhouettes emerging from the white haze. The dewdrops were immense, clinging heavily to every surface, seeming to glow with their own internal light in the diffused, silvery atmosphere. The silence was extraordinary, broken only by the soft drip condensation from the leaves and their own hushed footsteps on the saturated moss. Anya felt a sense of heightened awareness, a quiet anticipation tingling within her. The mist seemed to encourage introspection, turning her focus inward even as she observed the ethereal beauty around her. Guided by Rowan's words and a subtle inner pull she couldn't explain, Anya found herself drawn towards a low bank she hadn't paid much attention to before. Here, nestled amongst damp mosses, grew a cluster of forget-me-nots, their tiny blue flowers looking impossibly vibrant against the gray backdrop, each petal laden with large, shimmering dewdrops. She knelt carefully on the damp ground, the coolness seeping slightly through her shawl. The air here felt particularly still, charged with a gentle energy. Taking a slow, calming breath, she cupped her hand near one of the dew-laden blossoms, closing her eyes and letting her awareness settle into that quiet space Rowan had taught her to find. She didn't strain, didn't hope too fiercely, simply remained open, receptive, a silent witness to the morning's magic. For a long moment, there was only the profound, misty silence. Then it began. Fainter than a sigh at first, a single pure note hung in the air, seeming to resonate from the dewdrop itself. Another followed, then another, fragments weaving together not as disjointed chimes, but as connected parts of a whole. The melody was simple, achingly familiar, like a half-remembered dream surfacing into waking thought. It rose and fell with a gentle, rocking rhythm, notes clear and sweet, unburdened by time or distance. Tears welled in Anya's eyes, not from sadness, but from a deep, overflowing sense of release and recognition. It was her grandmother's lullaby. She didn't move, barely breathed, letting the melody wash over her, through her. It wasn't just a sound, it felt like a presence, a tangible connection to the love and comfort she associated with her grandmother, with quieter, gentler times. The simple tune seemed to smooth out the remaining rough edges of her sorrow, filling the spaces left behind with a warm, liquid peace. The tears flowed freely now, silent and cleansing, tracing warm paths down her cool cheeks. She wasn't crying for what was lost, but in gratitude for what had been found, for this gentle echo returning across the years, carried on a dewdrop in the mist. Rowan stood a respectful distance away, a silent, supportive presence, allowing Anya her private moment. He nodded slowly when she finally looked up, her eyes wet but her face serene, transformed by a quiet joy. "The orchard remembers," he said softly, "and sometimes it shares." The melody lingered in the air for a few moments more, then slowly faded as the mist began to thin, sunlight starting to pierce the gray veil in soft ethereal shafts. The forget-me-nots still glistened, but the specific magic of the moment had passed, leaving behind a profound sense of peace. Anya remained kneeling for a while longer, the melody replaying now within her own memory, clear and bright. She touched a dew-laden petal gently with her fingertip, a silent thank you to the flower, the dew, the orchard, the mist. The weight she had carried for so long felt entirely lifted, replaced by a feeling of wholeness, of connection, of quiet, luminous gratitude. She had come seeking an echo, a fragment of the past, and she had found it, clearer and more beautiful than she could have imagined. But in the finding, she had also discovered something unexpected, the deep, restorative stillness within herself, mirrored in the quiet heart of the whispering orchard. The lullaby was a gift, but the peace felt like coming home. Chapter 5. The Orchard Within. In the days that followed the misty morning, a palpable lightness settled over Anya. The quest that had brought her to the whispering orchard was fulfilled. The echo of her grandmother's lullaby, now a quiet, constant presence within her, humming softly beneath the surface of her thoughts like a gentle underground stream. She no longer felt the need to listen intently at dawn, though she still cherished the ritual, the cool air, the glistening dew, the shared stillness with Rowan. Now her listening was different, less seeking, more receiving, appreciating the subtle symphony of the orchard for its own sake. She found a quiet joy in participating in the gentle rhythms of orchard life alongside Rowan. He showed her how to carefully tend the soil around the roots of young saplings, crumbling the dark earth between her fingers, feeling its cool, damp texture. She learned the satisfying scrape of the small tool used to clear invasive moss from the lower bark of the older trees, revealing the intricate patterns beneath. They worked together companionably, often in comfortable silence, punctuated only by the sounds of their gentle labor, the bird song and the ever-present hum of the bees. There was a deep satisfaction in this simple, purposeful work, a feeling of contributing, however humbly, to the orchard's quiet flourishing. Anya spent long afternoons simply sitting beneath her favorite apple tree, sometimes with a book Rowan had lent her from his small collection, but more often just watching the play of light and shadow shifting through the leaves. She observed the intricate dance of butterflies amongst the late-blooming flowers, noticed the subtle changes in the scent of the air as the day warmed and cooled, and felt the deep, calming resonance of the ancient trees seep into her very being. The lullaby would often surface in her mind during these quiet times, not as a memory dredged up, but as a natural welling up of peace and contentment. Her conversations with Rowan became less about the dewdrop echoes and more about the simple philosophies born of a life lived in close harmony with nature. He spoke of the wisdom of cycles, the importance of stillness, the quiet strength found in patience. The orchard teaches us that growth happens slowly, often unseen, he remarked one afternoon, watching a ladybug traverse a leaf, and that even in dormancy, life prepares for renewal. His words resonated deeply with Anya, reflecting the quiet transformation she felt occurring within herself. The small cottage had truly become a haven. Anya found comfort in its familiar sense of wood smoke and dried herbs, the warmth radiating from the hearth in the evenings, the feel of the smooth, worn wooden surfaces. She slept deeply, untroubled, waking each morning feeling refreshed and centered. The heavy melancholy that had once clung to her felt like a distant memory, replaced by a steady, quiet sense of well-being. She moved with more ease, her shoulders relaxed, her gaze calm and clear. When the time inevitably came for Anya to leave the whispering orchard, there was no sharp pang of sadness, but rather a gentle sense of gratitude and fulfillment. She packed her few belongings, the scent of the orchard seeming to cling to the fabric of her shawl. Rowan walked with her along the mossy path towards the living willow gate, the morning sun casting long, peaceful shadows. He didn't offer platitudes or effusive farewells. Instead, he stopped near the gate and placed a small, smooth, gray stone in her hand. "A piece of the orchard's quiet," he said simply, "to hold when the world feels loud." Anya closed her hand around the stone, feeling its cool, solid presence. "Thank you, Rowan," she said, her voice soft but steady, "for everything." He simply nodded, his kind eyes smiling. Stepping back through the gate felt different this time. The outside world seemed a little brighter, perhaps a little louder, but it no longer felt overwhelming. Anya carried the orchard's stillness within her now, a quiet anchor in the midst of life's currents. The lullaby hummed gently in her heart, a reminder of connection, of peace found, of the gentle magic woven into the fabric of the world, waiting only for a quiet heart to listen. As she began her journey home, she felt not an ending, but a continuation, carrying the whispering orchard within her, a portable sanctuary of peace.